We are live. We are live. Welcome to college football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel, ring the notification bell, smash that like button, share the video if you want to support our college football's Rebel Outpost with a donation to help us keep the lights on and grow the channel. Just hit that $sign where you make your comment, and I'll get to super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls. I get it. 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 A lot of you watching college basketball, you've got no interest, and that's fine. This is going to be, look, I talk college football. I talk college football every single day of the year. And the few days that we do not have a live show, I'm talking college football. When I'm not in back of the microphone, I'm on the phone, I'm on the internet, I'm on email, I'm talking with people talking about college football. I'm talking to the little general about college football as she looks blankly into my face. So I get it. If people don't want to listen to this college football talk today, I absolutely understand. I get it. It's going to be a lowest view live show ever, possibly. That's fine, but I'm going to talk some college football. Look, we have been so busy here at PATC. There's been stuff that we have not been able to talk about. I keep pushing stuff away. We had to do our quarterback rankings of all the Power 4 conferences. I did the running back rankings nationally yesterday. Got a lot of flack for that one, which is outstanding. We've been talking about this silo, this ScoreAct, that. In fact, we've got a little bit of a chatter behind the curtain update on Nashville, Tennessee. Pretty vague, but I'm going to give you the tone of the chatter behind the curtain. And then we're going to talk about the curious case of the rambling wreck of Georgia Tech. We're going to talk about the Ohio State president, the new Ohio State president. But mostly this live show is going to be talking about the curious case of Georgia Tech. Are they in position to possibly get a P2 invite once the SEC and the Big Ten expands, either the traditional expansion or the silo expansion? And Georgia Tech is the candidate that is the most difficult to evaluate and describe, particularly to describe. They have been a candidate for Big Ten expansion for many, many years, for obvious reasons. We'll go through those again. But they were a candidate for Big Ten expansion. Under Jim Delaney, they were a candidate for Big Ten expansion. Not so much Kevin Warren, because at the time, the ACC granted rights and all that. But before the ACC signed that grant of rights, before they enacted that humongous exit fee, in which Maryland had to pay some of it, but not all of it. Maryland was one of the schools that voted against that raising of the exit fee. I don't know what year it was, back in 2011. It's all blurred to me now. But Georgia Tech had an opportunity to have serious talks with the Big Ten. But they declined. And we're going to go through the reasons they declined. And basically, it's the same reasons that they're not being, as we have been told, and I said yesterday and other live shows, we might be wrong on this. I don't think we are, but we might be. We don't think that Georgia Tech is really as active in positioning themselves as other schools in the ACC or the Big 12 when it comes to being possible Big Ten candidates in 2030 or a little bit earlier than 2030. And why is that? We are going to talk all about that and more here at PATC, College Football's Peek Around the Corner. We're going to start off the monologue with a little bit of a Nashville update. Not really any details. Just I think we're going to accurately give you a peek around the corner on what is going to be reported early in the next week. Let's put it that way. Karan Shakar, let's do a roll call first. Karan Shakar is in the house. John Dry is here. Bob Swanger. Adam. Happy Selection Sunday. Yes. March Madness, the dance, PATC. We're not too bright here. You guys know I am the original Minnesota moron. We're going to get in and we're going to get out. I know all of you are busy. Too busy to watch a PATC live show. So we came on here early. We're going to talk about what we're going to talk about. We'll have the phone lines open. And then we'll get out of here. We'll get out of your life for just one day because we're coming back Monday, March 16th. Bill G is in the house. The Oklahoma State Cowboy. I had Caleb Hopkins. Caleb Hopkins, number 11, top 12 running backs. I did not have Jordan Marshall. I did not have Hollywood Smothers. So Caleb Hopkins, you better not make me look like a fool in 2026. You and Deshaun Bishop, Tennessee Volunteer, who I had number 12 in the top 12 rankings. Rich Austin is in the house. Mr. Utah Utes, AFKA is here. Fantastic engineering program. I'm sure Purdue Scope is looking at comparable institution for research. Kenneth Maynard is in the house, representing my other alma mater for Selection Sunday. The Champs Go Gators is in the house. The other Gygax, West Virginia Mountaineer is in the house. Another Mountaineer Memes is here. Greg the Gold uses more words than Josh Pate. Do you know why I use more words than Josh Pate? A lack of intelligence on my part. I worked with a gentleman named Jeff Ullman. Not Jeff Olson, not the evil badger that's a really good friend of mine that comes in the chat room. A Jeff Ullman at the printing company that I worked at. And it would take me 5 times as many words to describe the situation that was going on in the plant than it would take Jeff Ullman. Jeff Ullman, people who are really intelligent are able to describe a situation using the least words as possible. Not me. Not me. I ramble on and on and on and on. Buckeye Jared Jones is in the house. Jay Chapman is here. Zero Wiz is in the house. Oh, we got a membership. 5 gifted memberships from the incredible, edible Bill G, Bigfoot Hunter, Maurice, Ryan Dooley, LV Seminole, Dago 88. All were gifted a gifted membership by Bill G. When you get an opportunity, please say thank you to Bill G for his, once again, unbelievable kindness to the community and to myself, this program. All of you are knighted. All of you are knighted. Cloak and dagger. Cloak and dagger. That means you can go on to our library of episodes, watch all the episodes, including members only early peak Cloak and Dagger episodes. Thank you, Bill G. Thank you for starting us off today. I appreciate your incredible generosity to this program. It does not go unnoticed. I'm very humbled by your kindness. Thank you, sir. Bill G is in the house. Stormy Cyclone. It's getting cold here. Is Greg making picks? No, I'm not. I'm not making my order of finished predictions yet. No, today is going to be a harmless day. I'm not going to do any damage. Yeah, we just had a winter storm, 12 inches of snow. I think the storm is starting to pull away here in Minnesota, hopefully. NE 1877 is in the house. Thanks for Coy Perch, Greg. He's looking good in spring practices. Well, that's probably true since early in spring practice, the Oregon Ducks. Hold on, I'm not ready yet. Let's reverse the tape. NE 1877. Thanks for Coy Perch, Greg. He's looking good in spring practices. He probably is looking good in spring practices because this early in spring practices for the Oregon Ducks, There's no tackling, is there? There's no tackling. Thanks for coming on in. Any 1877 Outlaw Skis is in the house. Pate is just another SEC mouthpiece. I've been called an SEC homer quite a lot lately. Friends call me Sean is in the house. A lot of love for Georgia Tech from the Big Ten. But if the SEC silo means going to 24, we know Georgia Tech wants to stay with North Carolina, located in the heart of SEC country. SEC silo 8. North Carolina State, Virginia Tech, Clemson, Florida State, Kansas, and Georgia Tech. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Thank you, friends. Call me Sean. Maniac Reactions is in the house. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate it. All right. Floyd is home. Okay. All right. So thank you all for joining us. I do appreciate it. I know you're all busy with college basketball. Let me first give you the update on the Nashville. Not much of an update. Pretty general. All right. Been told. I don't know if it's going to be propaganda. I don't know if it's part of the push. I've been told that look for some reporting that's going to have a whole lot of positivity in the push to get the ScoreAct through the finish line, to get the votes in the Senate. Sunday, March 15th, I'm reporting to you all, I'm giving you the peek. There's going to be some positive reporting on the ScoreAct and the possibility of it actually passing. Now, I still don't have it as the chalk to pass. The chalk is that it doesn't pass. But for whatever reason, people are starting to believe that maybe this sucker gets through. And that there is a real convergence in the Senate. Compromises are being thrown out there. Time is ticking. I'm just letting you know the tone, the tenor of what we believe is going to be reported early next week, this coming Monday, is that there's some positive movements. You're going to hear reporting on that. People getting together, saying, all right, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do this, we'll do that. Now, I pushed back on that, what was told to me. Because I said to the person that I was talking to, I find that a little bit hard to believe because Greg Sankey just came out. He's come out public and he keeps saying, let's not spend any time on this SBA media rights stuff. Like, let's not, basically he's saying, let's pass the ScoreAct and then we'll go back to the SBA. I think the major part of getting 60 votes in the Senate that you need, I think a major part of it is the SBA reform, in which it is optional that conferences and schools can combine their media rights and pool them together. It's optional. Right now, the bill that's going to be pushed in, it's all connected. I do not think the ScoreAct has any chance of getting 60 votes unless there's some big compromise, and that seems to be the best compromise out there. Not mandatory, but optional that these conferences can do it. And when you got Greg Sankey saying in public, well, you know, we shouldn't even be talking about that, I find that as not helpful. Not helpful, Greg Sankey. But again, I'm just giving you I guess I'm wrong. I guess I'm wrong because the steam, the reports coming out early next week, there's some positive movements when it comes to passing the SCORE Act. We shall see. We shall see. Old daddies, I'm not optimistic about the SCORE Act. AFKA just read an article on the phone where that was the push out kick article. Georgia Tech will be another Maryland. Georgia Tech, okay. I'm glad you made that comment. We'll get to that right now. Okay, let's get to that right now. Back in, I'm not going to give you the correct date. 2010, 2011. When Jim Delaney was looking to expand the conference to get into the Eastern region, when Jim Delaney let it be known to the Big Ten presidents that we can no longer be a one region conference or a one region conference plus Penn State, we needed to become a two region conference. And they needed to have, the Big Ten needed to expand in the East. We all know that the number one target for Big Ten expansion out East was North Carolina and Virginia. Nothing much has changed since 16 years ago. But North Carolina was not interested at the time. Jim Delaney has an affinity to North Carolina, by the way, but could not get it done. Virginia wasn't going to be interested unless North Carolina was interested. Virginia declined Big Ten's advances. Then it came down to Maryland. Well, before Maryland, it came down to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech made it perfectly clear to the Big Ten, if Virginia or North Carolina is not interested, we're not interested. We're staying with Virginia and North Carolina. Then it went to Maryland. And Maryland took the jump. And the Big Ten, when Maryland was trying to make that final decision, should we go or should we not, the Big Ten told Rutgers, if Maryland doesn't jump, we're not expanding. If Maryland says yes, you are number 16. Maryland said yes, Rutgers became number 16. Now, I think, in my opinion, I don't know what you all think, but I think it's pretty obvious that Maryland made the right decision. But I'll let you guys have your opinion on it, but I don't think Maryland regrets the decision at all. Now, but when Maryland made the jump to the Big Ten, it was a political nightmare. A political nightmare. Any terrapin will tell you this. Now, for Maryland, the one good thing that they had was the president at the time. She had the power to make the move. She had the institutional power to make the move. If she did not have that institutional power, it would not have gone through. Maryland did not have the political cover internally because no ACC school was going with them. Georgia Tech wasn't going to go without Virginia and North Carolina. Virginia wasn't going to go without North Carolina. Maryland made the move and got absolutely hammered internally from not from all their fans, but some boosters, some faculty, not all their faculty. What was the famous newspaper writer? John Feinman. I mean, he used to have a radio show out east. We were able to get it in Minnesota for a while. I think he wrote for the Washington Post. He's the guy who wrote the book A Good Walk Spoiled, or something like the title, talking about the Masters, talking about the golf, something like that. And he went after Maryland. He thought this was unbelievably stupid of Maryland. How could you possibly leave your ACC peers, go to the Big Ten? You're not going to have any connection with the Big Ten. On and on and on and on and on. Maryland got absolutely ran over, but they still made the move. And now they're making $75 million instead of $45 million in Big Ten payouts. Georgia Tech was not willing to make the move to the Big Ten at that time. They were ahead of Maryland in the pecking order. Georgia Tech is ahead of quite a few candidates in the pecking order this time around for the Big Ten. But again, as I have told you all, they doesn't seem to be as aggressive as other schools in positioning themselves for a possible invite a couple years down the road. Georgia Tech considers themselves a public Ivy, a public school that gives incredible benefits to the students at a certain price point that is lower than the Ivy schools. Georgia Tech is the real deal Holyfield when it comes to institutions. They're public Ivy. They've got a couple of different tier lists. And again, it seems like every one of these institutions have they've divided, they say this is our peer institutions when it comes to this category or this category. But Georgia Tech has made it known that for a lot of what they do, their peers are Virginia, UCLA, Michigan, North Carolina, Penn State, certain peer groups, public Ivy peer group. They've also got another peer group that is listed on their website. Again, a lot of these institutions have different listings. Georgia Tech Institutional Research and Planning, peer institutions. They only had 8 listed. Carnegie Mellon University, Cornell University, Duke University, which we'll talk about in a little bit, MIT, Penn State, Pennsylvania State University. We are Penn State. Purdue, of course, is there. Stanford University, Texas A&M, College Station. So Georgia Tech, they look at Duke as a peer. Of course, Purdue, Stanford. They do look at North Carolina, Virginia. We just talked about that. Now, it's important for Georgia Tech. I think it's politically ingrained. I think it's culturally ingrained. I had a where I used to work back in the day, and I'm not going to give the HR, the head of HR in our state, in our region, was from Georgia Tech. And you go into her office and she had Georgia Tech stuff all over her walls. And she was a booster for Georgia Tech. And so we had quite the conversations. Georgia Tech is not going to be in Maryland. If they come over to the Big Ten, it's going to be most likely at least either a public Ivy, which they consider Virginia or North Carolina, or B, it's going to have to be Duke. That is why I don't have Georgia Tech in the Holy Smokes Theater. Not at this time. They got a lot of things that the Big Ten wants. Incredible institution, research university, in an incredible location. Atlanta, a market, money. Even though they're about the 4th or 5th brand in the city of Atlanta, still a lot of things going for Georgia Tech. And they've also had an investment lately in athletics. A lot of good things. Georgia Tech is one of the top candidates for the Big Ten. I just don't have them as tier 1. And I don't really, how do I put this? I don't see them at this time. Now, I did a year ago. I did 8 months ago. But I don't see Georgia Tech at this time on March 15th as a partner with Miami. If it's a Big Ten, if the Big Ten expands, and if they expand by 2 schools, and neither one of them are named Notre Dame, I don't think it's going to be Miami and Georgia Tech. I don't. I used to throw that out there. I used to think, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't, because of Georgia Tech. Nothing against Miami. We've got Miami on the stage along with Notre Dame, along with North Carolina. We got Miami as a tier 1 Big Ten candidate. So nothing against Miami from my perspective. I'm just telling you, Georgia Tech going to the Big Ten is going to need a long time partner, cousin, family member of North Carolina or Virginia or Duke, in our opinion, or Notre Dame. But so if the Big Ten expands, if the Big Ten, let's wait on that. Let's go through, I want to go through something here real quick. Let's talk about the Ohio State new president. Whoops, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Hold on, everybody. Meet President Ravi Belemkonda. And I'm not going to be able to say his last name. I apologize. I'm going to call him Ravi from now on, okay? President Ravi, the Ohio State new president, serves as the 18th president of the Ohio State University. He was appointed by the university's Board of Trustees on March 12, 2026. He played an integral role in crafting and leading early phases of education for Citizenship 2035 strategic plan through its core academic excellence initiatives aimed at enhancing student success, investing in faculty and strong programs, and advancing Ohio State's leadership in artificial intelligence. Under his leadership, the university launched AI Fluency, a bold initiative to integrate AI into undergraduate experience, a new career center of excellence designed to better connect students with internships, job success after graduation, and faculty hiring programs that are attracting top scholars to the university. Ravi, who trained as a bioengineer and neuroscientist through a PhD at Brown University and postdoctoral fellowship at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, joined Ohio State in 2025 to serve as executive vice president and provost. As chief academic officer, he oversaw university's core academic enterprise, which includes 15 colleges, 4 regional campuses, and more than 8,800 faculty. Big job. He also led university-wide portfolio of programs, initiatives in the Office of Academic Affairs and Enterprise for Research, Innovation, and Acknowledge that support initiative and life-saving research, as well as faculty, student success in Columbus and on campus across the state. Prior to Ohio State, he served as the provost and executive vice president for academic affairs at Emory University. At Emory, Ravi launched and led several major initiatives, including facility recruitment, retention efforts, focus on arts, artificial intelligence, business, law. He helped the Student Flourishing Initiative, Emory Purpose Project, focus on well-being ethics. Before becoming Emory Provost, Ravi served as the dean at Duke University's Pratt School of Engineering. So he's been at Georgia Tech, he's been at Duke. Previously, he was Wallace H. Calder Professor and Chair of the Department of Biomedical Engineering at Georgia Institute of Technology, Georgia Tech. He also served as the Associate Vice President for Research at Georgia Tech. Now, when it was announced that Ravi became the new Ohio State president, Angel Cabrera, the president of Georgia Tech, congratulated Ravi and said, "The Ohio State University chose a great new president. Congrats to them and to our former colleague and chairman of the Wallace H. Coulter Department of Biomedical Engineering at Georgia Tech and Emory University." So these two gentlemen have worked together, same university at the same time, which is important. If you're talking about realignment, relationships matter, relationships matter, relationships matter. We talked previously here at PATC that Ted Carter, the former president now of Ohio State, he was very interested in the Big Ten expanding into Atlanta, Georgia Tech. Now let's say something here. We say this on every live show. Nothing is imminent. It hasn't been imminent. We have said this over the last couple of years. Nothing is close as far as we are concerned, for multiple different reasons. Nothing is imminent. But what has been going on, and we can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, what has been going on is the positioning of the schools. You don't wait for the last moment. You have relationships. You talk. Everybody's talking now. third party, second party, first party. They're all talking with each other. When Florida State and Clemson won that massive victory in the courts, the legal counsels of the Big Ten and the SEC, they backed away. Go ahead. I don't think we're going to have a problem here legally. Jim Phillips is we used to hear reports, and they were true, that Jim Phillips would tell the other commissioners or the conferences, keep your hands off. Keep your hands off. Legally, keep your hands off. We don't hear those reports anymore. Because Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, they all have a way out of the gore in the ACC. They got to pay a lot of money. They have to have an invite. They have to file a notice of withdrawal on or before June 1st of the year, prior to the year they're going to join the other conferences. But there is that exit hatch established. There is the exit hatch to get out of the gore established. So legally, first party talks, not a problemo. Not a problem. All right? So, while nothing is imminent, we strongly believe there is nothing imminent for lots of reasons. ScoreAct, nobody's ready. It's just not happening right now. While nothing is imminent, there's been a lot of talks, a lot of positioning. Some of the positioning is with another school. Like, schools are talking with each other. Would it help our candidacy if we talked with each other and if we had some sort of communication with the Southeastern Conference or the Big Ten? Some schools we think are going alone on this. Some schools we have a lot of information on. Cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. Some we don't have any information on. For example, and again, we're not infallible. The people that we talk to are not infallible. They have incredible track record, as you have witnessed over the years, but not infallible. But we tend to believe here at Peek Around the Corner that Duke is going this alone. They don't really need a pair up with them. I don't think they believe that would help them any. I think there is an attraction, obviously, with North Carolina and Duke and Virginia, maybe a Duke and Georgia Tech, but Duke has been very aggressive, positioning themselves, and they've done it alone. That's what we believe at Peek Around the Corner. We believe, of course, there has been a lot of communications, but you're not going to catch on a FOIA, between Virginia and North Carolina. We think there has been some positioning talks between North Carolina and Clemson. And we believe that Miami is somewhat like Duke, going it alone. I don't think Miami is partnering up with anybody. The public institutions are more likely to talk with other public institutions when it comes to this stuff with realignment. Not always, but that's what seems to be the case. Oklahoma and Texas were very close. They were on the same phone call when they called Greg Sankey. USC called the Big Ten alone. USC private. UCLA called the Big Ten alone. So that's, again, we're talking about the positioning of what is going on. I have come to the belief that there is not a whole lot of natural positioning with a Georgia Tech in Miami, being that the combo. I think it is more natural for a Miami and Florida State to have talks. I think there's more natural for Miami to go alone. And I think it's way more historical. We have reasons to believe that a Georgia Tech would take the plunge if it was a North Carolina, Virginia, or Duke going with them. Which raises the interesting point, and again, I'm just speculating here, which raises the interesting point of, because our belief, and we still maintain it, although we could end up being wrong, but people want to know what I'm thinking. Not a report, we're just talking here. Again, we still believe that a North Carolina, the Big Ten, definitely is not the chalk, even if the Big Ten wanted it to be so. And for those who there's a few people out there that think it's my job to keep Big Ten secrets. It's not my job to keep the secrets of the Big Ten. Do you think that is not what we do at Peek Around the Corner? I don't keep the secrets. I keep the secrets if a source has to have me keep the secret. I keep the secret. I keep information embargoed if it's going to help me further the story down the road. But if you're going to say, Greg, you got to keep the Big Ten secrets, no, I don't. That's not my job. I did not keep the USC the secret. I did not keep the Oregon-Washington thing a secret. I did not keep the Colorado Big 12 meeting. I kept it that it was a meeting secret. I kept that it was in Chicago secret. I kept that it was May 7th a secret. But I gave everybody a hot bubble of action, range of dates that something was happening. It's not my job to keep the secrets, though, for the conferences. That's not what I do. My job is to give you all the best peek around the corner. I'm just saying that for a handful of people out there that are still upset with me that I don't keep the Big Ten secrets. All right. So, is the Big Ten, how interested is the Big Ten in Georgia Tech? I think the Big Ten is very interested. It's not at the Notre Dame. Now, again, we're talking about Georgia Tech here before you all go to your basketball. Before you all leave and go back to your basketball. We're talking about the curious case of Georgia Tech because it is a curious case. Big Ten is interested in Georgia Tech for obvious reasons. I do not think that level of interest is at, of course, the level of the interest in Notre Dame, obviously. We don't believe the level of interest of Georgia Tech is at the level with North Carolina, obviously. We don't think that the interest in Georgia Tech is on the line with Virginia. We don't think the interest that the Big Ten has in Georgia Tech is in the same line with Miami. But after that, yeah. And if I sit here and I talk about how the SEC looking to expand, and they are, eventually, they have gamed this sucker out. They have let it be known to all the national reporters that North Carolina, Virginia were the top two targets. And they gave all the reasons why, and they were not lying. They have some loose sink ships people in the SEC. I'm not going to give that clue because you guys will pick up on it. But they added a loose ship. So if North Carolina, let's get back to Georgia Tech. If North Carolina, if the Big Ten, and we're not going to close the door on it, but if the Big Ten is unable to get a North Carolina, well, that's one option of being able to get Georgia Tech that is not out there anymore. So now that it comes down to Virginia and Duke, because Georgia Tech taking the plunge to join a national conference without a North Carolina, they're probably going to need a Virginia or Duke involved. In Virginia, let me ask you the question. Would the Big Ten, if Notre Dame is not willing to bolt, if North Carolina is choosing the SEC, would a Virginia-Georgia Tech combo be enough for the Big Ten and their media partners? I don't know. Would that be enough? Virginia, Georgia Tech, Duke, Georgia Tech. Duke, Georgia Tech, Virginia, Miami. Is that enough? Virginia, who the SEC now no longer has their forces in charge of Virginia. Virginia, Georgia Tech, Duke, Miami. Or are we looking at North Carolina? Well, I won't go down that road. I'm just putting out those options because I do not think at this point that it's going to be a Georgia Tech, Miami 19-20. I just don't think that's going to be what is going to move Georgia Tech to the Big Ten. They're going to want an old-time ACC partner in North Carolina, Virginia, or Duke politically in that school. And I'm not taking a shot at Miami. This is about Georgia Tech. So that is why lately I have kind of dismissed the Georgia Tech-Miami combination. I think, for example, again, we're a lot of this is speculation, but a lot of this is by conversations that I always have. I would put forward a better chance of a Florida State Miami than a Georgia Tech Miami. The reason why these schools are positioning themselves, and some of them are talking with other schools, is number one, they're trying to increase the valuation for the SEC invite or the Big Ten invite. And number two, they're trying to make it easier politically, culturally within their school. These schools are going to have to worry about that. The SEC was worried about that when it came to the possibility of adding Virginia. And they had their window, but that window has closed. It's a lot more difficult now for the SEC to get Virginia. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a lot more difficult. And nobody is going to debate that. It's a lot more difficult. And all of that is very important. You saw what happened to UCLA when California did not come with UCLA. They had the Board of Trustees meeting that UCLA and California, University of California shared, and there's a calimony tax, and they had a public hearing. We covered that public hearing. You saw what happened. You saw what happened to Maryland. You saw what happened when Texas went to the SEC and how pissed off Texas A&M. All of this has to be part of the consideration. They get the Board of Trustees, they get the people at Georgia Tech to okay the move. They're probably going to have to go with Virginia, ladies and gentlemen. Or they're probably going to have to go with Duke. One of the two, if not both. And if we're focusing on Georgia Tech, which we are in this live show, that's the combination that's going to be needed. Virginia, because right now I don't think North Carolina is in play for Big Ten. And I don't think the SEC is in Big Ten for Georgia Tech. So then it comes down to a Virginia or Duke is needed, I believe, to get Georgia Tech. Now, here's another problem, at least for this show, because we spent a lot of time poking and prodding. We've got sources. We got the money purchase. We've got chatter behind the curtain. We don't have any information of Georgia Tech and Duke doing. Again, Duke seems to be alone on this. So we don't think there's any Georgia Tech positioning going on with Duke. And we don't think North Carolina's in play. So now we're going to be doing the poking and prodding on a Virginia, Georgia Tech positioning, possibly. But we don't have any information on that. Other than Georgia Tech is going to want Virginia, Duke, or North Carolina in the mix. That is all the stuff that is going on right now. It's going on all over the place. Florida State, they're positioning themselves. Clemson is positioning themselves. Clemson, they think they would increase their chances if it's a North Carolina Clemson situation for the Southeastern Conference. You've got Kansas, you've got Utah. We know that Utah has had some conversations with the Big Ten. We know that 100%, Now, I don't think there's much that Utah can do when it comes to, trying to latch on with anybody other than maybe Kansas, and I don't think they would even do that. Because there might be only one spot out west of the Mississippi in the next expansion of the Big Ten, and I don't think Utah is gonna. I think Utah is going this alone. And then you've got one more thing I want to talk about before we open it up. Then you've got the situation with Notre Dame. Notre Dame, who do they have the strong relationships with? Is somebody trying to position themselves with Notre Dame just in case they're the ones that pull the trigger on all of this? I have been saying for months and months and months and months and months, nothing is imminent. I've also been saying for months and months and months, Notre Dame ain't going to be the first one that pulls the trigger. I've had to go back on that quite a bit lately. As you all know who watched the last update in the Holy Smokes Theater, we've got Notre Dame standing right next to North Carolina at the center of the stage. And that indicates that they're getting closer and closer to possibly being the first one that pulls the trigger. We still have North Carolina, number one on that. That's the spot that Colorado had. That's the spot that Boise State had in their realignment. That is the spot that North Carolina has. But Notre Dame has inched ever closer to North Carolina because of all the chatter that we've heard about Notre Dame not really enjoying their position right now. So now you got to think about, okay, if that's not only the perception of peek around the corner, that's the perception of chatter behind the curtain. That's why we moved Notre Dame. That is probably the perception of other schools. Look, the ACC school, now you can do whatever you want with this. But the ACC schools know more than I do, more than you all do, that Notre Dame ain't happy right now. It doesn't mean that Notre Dame's going to leave. It doesn't mean that Notre Dame's going to change their scheduling format, switch it up with the ACC to the Big Ten. But they know that Notre Dame is pissed. So now, who can take advantage of Notre Dame being upset with the ACC, a school within the ACC? Well, there's not many of them. But one of them being Stanford, possibly another one being Georgia Tech, possibly another one being Miami. But other than that, maybe Duke. But other than that, I don't think so. So anyway, we just wanted to talk about Georgia Tech, the curious case of Georgia Tech. Great market, great institution, but they're not going to be the Maryland. They're not going to go to the Big Ten without ACC company, without a long time ACC partner. They're not going to do it. Probably with another public Ivy school or with Duke. And that leaves you Virginia, that leaves you North Carolina. No offense to North Carolina State. No offense to Virginia Tech. No offense to Florida State. No offense to Clemson. But we don't think Georgia Tech is going to go to the Big Ten with any of those other schools in a two-school edition. It's got to be Virginia. It's got to be North Carolina. It's got to be Duke. And if North Carolina is not part of it right now, then it's Virginia or Duke. And is a Georgia Tech Virginia enough for the Big Ten to bite? Is a Georgia Tech and Duke big enough for the Big Ten to bite? That's why we don't have Georgia Tech up on the center of the stage. Even though they have obvious advantages, obvious strengths as a Big Ten candidate. It's a curious case. A lot of interest from Big Ten circles. A lot of interest from Big Ten presidents. Some interest from the media companies. At the city of Atlanta, Fox getting the city of Atlanta. Yes, yes, and yes. But Georgia Tech doesn't really see themselves as... Georgia Tech does not balk at the ACC branding. They do not balk at the ACC image. Georgia Tech had no problem internally voting to sue Florida State and Clemson or to go after them in the courts because Georgia Tech was one of the ACC protectors. Georgia Tech has been one of the ACC believers. So to get them to go to the Big Ten, it's got to be Virginia or Duke along with them. And possibly more. But it's got to be Virginia or Duke with them. That's what we believe here at Peek Around the Corner. All right. We've got a super chat here. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. At least for a short time before you all go back to your basketball. We got your Cobra Cat super chat. Cobra Cat, how many private universities are too many privates for the Big Ten? Too many privates leave them exposed, but it has its pros too. Do public fear private? Ask me that question after the SCORE Act. The passing of the SCORE Act or the not passing of the SCORE Act, once we know what happens with that, that's a lot easier question to answer. If the SCORE Act doesn't pass, then we're screwed. And then we're going down a road, and I think it's going to happen in phases. We've talked about the gradual breakaway. We don't think, and I think that ever since we had that live show, everything that Sankey has said, everything that Ross Dellinger has said, has backed us up on that. The SEC, if they're going to break away, it's not going to be a sudden breakaway. It's going to be, we're going to have our own rules, we're going to have our own enforcement, but we're still going to play with everybody. But we're going to find out who's serious about governance, who's going to kind of follow our guidance, and then they're going to take another step, and then the eventual breakaway. The SCORE Act, if it passes, then we go back to our traditional ways. But if it doesn't pass, and if the breakaway seems more plausible, now I do think the public universities are going to become more important for the SEC and the Big Ten. If the SEC and the Big Ten are looking to expand in their silos, they're going to need, we talked about how Georgia Tech needs political coverage. Well, the SEC and the Big Ten, if they expand in a silo world, they're going to need political coverage. And you get political coverage more with the public universities. So, in other words, it's a long ways of saying, I got to find out what happens with the SCORE Act. If the SCORE Act doesn't pass, a large public university in a large market in a large state would be quite beneficial to the conference. And I would include North Carolina, Virginia, and Georgia Tech as part of that grouping. Thank you for the $5 holla, Jacoba Cat. I appreciate it very much. I know I didn't really answer your question. I do not believe the public fear privates. The Big Ten was happy to add USC, right? Happy to add UCLA, Oregon, Washington. I do think the Big Ten is mighty interested in Miami, which is a private. All right, phone lines open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. The phone lines are open a little earlier on this live show. Again, this live show is going to be shorter than other ones. I know you all want to get back to your basketball, college basketball, conference championships, Selection Sunday coming up. D5 Terps, if Notre Dame pulls the trigger first, 3 ACC teams are coming with them. John Dry, how can you break away with so many weak schools? I don't know what weak school means. Are you talking about weak football programs? I think maybe that's what you mean, John Dry. Well, it's more difficult, isn't it? It's more difficult to expand with weak football programs. But then again, sometimes a weak football program becomes a strong football program. Like Indiana, for example. I remember when everybody used to rip on Indiana in the chat room, saying Indiana don't deserve to be in the Big Ten. They should get less money. And now Indiana are the Big Ten champions and national champions. So sometimes your weak football programs become strong football programs. This is a 100-year decision. So you're looking at the institution, you're looking at their ceiling, you're looking at the market, you're looking at the money that's involved in that market, the demographics. Phone lines open. If nobody wants to call, we'll call it a day because I know all of you want to watch college basketball. We have been so busy here at Peek Around the Corner. And I wanted to finally talk about Ohio State's president, the new Buckeye president who served in Duke, who served at Georgia Tech. And I don't look, whatever the Buckeyes do, whatever Ohio State does.
Call from
Rich Austin.
Rich Austin, can you hold on for just one moment, please?
You bet.
I appreciate it. Whatever happens, ladies and gentlemen, the Big Ten not expanding, the Big Ten expanding, the Big Ten having to go silo at some point, the Big Ten agreeing on a 2014 playoff or a 16-team playoff before they go to the 2014 playoff, or if the Big Ten expands, what type of expansion do teams come in at 50 cents on the dollar? Are there going to be some for-profit enterprise in the Big Ten? Whatever the Big Ten does, the new president of the Big Ten is going to play a massive part in it. Massive part in the decision making. And again, Ravi serving at Georgia Tech and Duke does not mean that Georgia Tech and Duke are going to get the invites. No. There's a lot more to it than that. But it ain't going to hurt Duke. It's not going to hurt Georgia Tech. Unless this guy had a bad experience at one of the schools, which is probably not the case. Go ahead, Mr. Austin. Mr. Ute, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir.
Greg, great show as always. Hey, no one was calling in, so I thought I might as well avoid the pause and call in. So
I appreciate it, sir.
My call. Hey, wanted to talk to you about Notre Dame. First question I have for you is: are you right now? Is the chalk that Notre Dame's going to get a scheduling agreement over being forced to join the Big Ten? Is that where you're thinking it's going to go most likely?
No, I don't think that. Well, I'm biased. No, I'm totally against Notre Dame. I'm totally against the Big Ten doing that type of deal. Okay, number one.
Yeah. Me too. No, I just wondering if that's where it's looking like it's heading.
No, I would not call that. I would not call that the chalk at all.
Okay.
I just think it's definitely that option is definitely alive and people are talking about it. The chatter behind the curtain is talking about it. Our Notre Dame source says they're talking about it. But there's nobody I don't believe it's the chalk. Not at all. No, I don't. Even though what we've been talking about it here, if we all wake up tomorrow morning and it's announced that Notre Dame has flipped their scheduling agreement from the ACC to the Big Ten, I would be shocked. Even though we've been talking about it, I would still be shocked. But go ahead, sir.
No, that's good to hear. Because I guess my question was if they were to do a scheduling agreement, I don't see how Notre Dame would have any leverage to say, okay, we're going to do a scheduling agreement, and Big Ten, we want you to add these schools along with us coming to do a scheduling agreement. I would think that Notre Dame would only have leverage if they join as a full member.
I would agree.
Would you agree?
Yep, I would agree.
Yeah. I don't know how they could say, yeah, we only want to do a 5-game schedule agreement. By the way, you got to take this school, that school, and this school, and then we'll do it. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So the other question I have too is about Stanford. I just wanted to ask you, and I know I've asked you this before, but there's a lot of talk. Like Moen always mentions that Stanford has this apprehension of joining the Big Ten Academic Alliance.
Yeah.
But I was doing some research, and I just don't know if there's really truth to that. I'm just wondering where that is sourced from. If you've heard anything along those lines, because I don't see that as being a requirement. Like for example, University of Chicago, although they're not a Big Ten member anymore, they were a member of both the Ivy League and the Big Ten Academic Alliance at the same time. So I don't know that that's like some requirement. I'm just curious if you know anything on that, because I don't think that Stanford has to give up their Ivy League library system to join the Big Ten, and I'm wondering if you definitively know either way. Because everything I've looked at, Greg, online is that had nothing to do with them not joining the Big Ten when USC joined.
Okay,
a lot of people were saying that.
Yeah.
That Stanford didn't join at that time because they weren't willing to give it up, and so, but everything I've seen is that Fox didn't want Stanford or Cal at that time, and so Fox is the one that said no, not anything to do with this library affiliation.
The word join, it's probably open to an argument of semantics, because if Stanford would join the Big Ten, I don't know if it's a requirement, but there would be an expectation that Stanford would be heavily involved with the Big Ten schools when it came to research.
Right.
Heavily involved in sharing their resources, their library, their faculty, their top guys, top gals, and all. I mean, so the whole world, the word of join, do they have to join the Big Ten academic, whatever you call it?
Academic Alliance?
Yeah, BTA, whatever.
Yeah.
The word join, I don't know, but they would have to immerse themselves, and I don't know if they're willing to immerse themselves. I don't know if they're willing to pull that trigger. And I used to have doubts about Duke wanting to pull that trigger, but I think Duke is willing to pull that trigger, from what we've heard.
Yeah.
So the word join, I don't know, but either way, they're gonna have to give up their. They're gonna have to become closer with the Big Ten schools.
For sure, and that's how they were in the Pac-12, from my understanding, is they're very, they were a great conference member that way, even though they were a member of the Ivy League plus, library system. They shared their research with the other schools and that kind of stuff. And so anyway, I just thought that was maybe overblown, and I didn't know if that was really an issue or if that's kind of been something that's gotten put out there in the ether and everyone's jumped on it, but it's not really reality. Because like you said, Duke's going full board at the Big Ten, and they want to be members of both. And anyway, I just was curious on that angle. I wasn't seeing it. So
yeah.
I just, in fact, it seemed more like Stanford is still that school that the Big Ten presidents would kill to have in the conference.
Yep.
And then they would need to be blended with another Western school like Utah that brings the athletics as well.
Yep.
To create the right blend for out west. So is the way it was kind of looking. But anyway, those were my questions. I'll let someone else call in, Greg. But thanks so much for all you do.
You got it, buddy. I appreciate it, Mr. Austin. Thank you.
Great show, man.
Thank you.
See ya.
We've got ourselves another super chat from Jacobra Cat. Holy smokes. Jacoba Cat, how will we know when Big Ten cements global impact? Jacoba Cat, I don't know what that means. I apologize. You're going to have to dumb down your comments on this channel. You're Moen and Nathan Brown and the professor, they understand different, they understand deeper super chats than I do. I love creative super chats, but I'm not all that deep of a guy, okay? I am the original Minnesota moron. How will we know when Big Ten cements global impact? I have no idea what that means. How will we know when the Big Ten is going to expand? I don't know. I have no idea. So I don't know, but thank you for the $2 holler, Jacoba Cat. I apologize. I do not understand the question. All right, guys. I think I want to thank everyone who donated to our program. Jacoba Cat and Bill G. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate everybody coming on in. Again, we've been on the air for 1 hour and 20 minutes. That's about the length that I was thinking we'd be on for a shorter live show today because college basketball reigns supreme here right now. Sunday selection show, everything going on. I do appreciate all of you taking some time out. Again, keep your head on a swivel. If there is breaking news about Nashville and the SEC tonight, there's a chance we might come on later tonight and do a live show. But if not, we will come on definitely tomorrow, sometime tomorrow, Monday, March 16th. A fresh new week of college football. We did a live show every day last week, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. It was a lot of work. There was a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. So buckle up, brace for impact. Jacoba Cat, where's Floyd? Unfortunately, Floyd is in Iowa City, Iowa. But soon that location is going to change. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. God, family, Golden Gopher.